Yeah, cool.
All right. Summit training starts now.
Bingo. Okay, I'm sharing iPad screen. Let's see if this is going to work. Let's see if this is going to work. iPad screen. All right. Bingo. Okay, so what I wanted to share with you is the journey of summits that I have been on. First, I'm going to say, what is a summit? And a summit is what we're on right now. 2 M's in summit or one?
2 M's.
Oh, hello. Where'd that come from? Okay.
The first step of the journey is learning to spell summit.
Step 1, learn how to spell summit. Okay. So let's say a summit is lots of speakers. And you ever see these web pages with all these handsome faces? That's the lots of speakers. So why do we want lots of speakers? Well, you might be here for one speaker and discover a new speaker. Instead of having one speaker try to build an audience, you get all the speakers to share with all of their audiences, and everyone is essentially cross-promoting each other. So all of the speakers who were speaking today sent out an email to their list and posted on their social media to come join this summit. So you have, it's like partner promotion, okay? I'm going to show you how the technology has changed and why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it now, in hopes that this will support you. And I was inspired to create this training for a client of mine who said, I want to do a summit, but I don't know where to start. So let's say, where do you start? Start by make a list of who you want to speak. And then send them an email, text message, phone call, messenger message, whatever, and compliment them. Invite them to speak and compliment them. So what that would sound like is, hey, I'm hosting a summit for, in this case, this summit is called Grow Your Coaching and Wellness Practice Summit, because that's what we do at Expert Speaker. We help coaches grow their coaching company. We help wellness practitioners grow their wellness practitioner company. I have a client who is a Hashimoto's expert. So he does the Hashimoto's Summit, right? Hashimoto's is apparently an autoimmune disease. And why I think naming your summit is important is, one, it tells your audience what it's about, but it also allows you to claim the authority. You are the host of the blank summit. Let me just ask one of you, Jacqueline Sisson, if you were to have a summit, what would your summit be about?
It would be about heart-to-heart connection.
Okay, so the heart-to-heart connection summit. And if you could have your dream come true lineup of speakers, who would be in it?
You would.
Oh,
Michael Whitehouse, Stevie Vintner.
Yes. Maybe Jack Canfield, maybe Oprah, maybe.
I'd rather have Jack Canfield, and my mentor has passed on, so Jim Rome won't be there.
Yeah.
But Brian Tracy.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So excellent. Thank you, Jacqueline. So imagine inviting your heroes. Imagine inviting your mentors. Imagine even inviting some of your clients. Your clients can speak to the transformation that they've gotten from working with you. Your mentors can speak to the wisdom that you have attained. So it's a great way to honor some of the people in your lives by giving them a stage. It's a great way to connect to some people that you might not have been able to get on a podcast, or you might not have been able to get on a one-on-one phone call, but they'll come and speak on a summit. So make a list of the speakers and then invite them. And I said, invite them with a compliment. And what I meant by that was make them a personal invitation, whether it's a video or a phone call or a text message, and tell them why you appreciate them so much so that they feel honored by the invitation. By the way, I'm going to interview Michael after this because I've done maybe 5 summits, and I think Michael's done 3 times as many, and he's got a whole different depth of wisdom for this. So I'm going to share with you what I'm doing, and then we'll hear from Michael. Okay, now let me show you the history. So I remember it must have been 10 years ago, maybe even more, maybe like 13 years ago, now that I think of it, where there was a guy who built a website on WordPress and like built his own summit basically. And I remember him like, you remember those old phone operators that would like pull out the plug and pop it into the other plug to like connect the phone call? I feel like that's what it was like for him building this summit. He was like building a website and plugging in a video and telling people to refresh. And it was just like way too hard, way too technical. And it took him like months to build. Now, the first time I started doing summits, I purchased a software called Virtual Summit Software. And what this thing does is it allows you to have a live summit or a pre-recorded summit. You can sell tickets to the summit. You can give it away for free. It builds a website for you. Problem was with that is it was complicated and it broke a lot. So I stopped using it. And I was using it for pre-recorded summits. So what a pre-recorded summit is I would invite my 10 speakers and I would have them all schedule a Zoom call with me. So I'm going to go back up here to my process here, and I'm going to do step one, make a list of speakers. Step two, invite them. If you're doing pre-recorded, you could do a pre-recorded Zoom call. So we would just get on a Zoom, just the two of us, no audience, and I would just interview them, just record it, and then I would have this video file that was sort of like their speech. So I would just load all these video files into this summit software, and then boom, launch the summit, where there's the landing page where you put in your name and email to register, and then you get access to all of these pre-recorded speeches. The problem with that, though, for me, was that, you know, on the day of the launch, on the day of the summit, we're not really doing anything. We're just like opening the doors to a bunch of videos that people can register for. And I never really knew like how many people were there live and how many people were watching it, and was it really making much of an impact? Now, I would hear from my clients who were on these speaker spots that they're getting booked calls and they're getting clients from it. So they're getting some traction. We would get a few hundred registrations. So my email list would grow by 300 or 400 registrations, and that was cool. So I would get subscribers and our speakers would get clients, which is kind of the point. All right. So first thing was, back in the day, building a website, like you're putting it together yourself. Then this virtual summit software was back in 2019. Now, about a year ago, I said, forget virtual summit software. I'm just going to build it myself in Kajabi. So Kajabi is like my website host and my emailer and my course host. And what this is it looks like you just get to a landing page, you put name and email in, and then you get to a page with all of the speeches pre-recorded, embedded like YouTube videos, just one page with a bunch of speeches. So very unsophisticated, free, simple. I like it. It's simple, so it solved the complicated problem. So it's simple, but it still wasn't live. And it's still a lot of work. You know, you got to reach out to the speakers, you got to schedule the interviews, and then I met Michael Whitehouse. Dun, dun, dun. Michael Whitehouse, the fun online events guy. And so I'm gonna write Michael Whitehouse. And he said, Majeed, let's do a live one-day summit. I'll get all the guests. You don't even need to tell me who you want. Just tell me what your audience is and I'll go find guests. And so I don't even know what he did, but it worked. And so we're all here because of Michael. He got the speakers. We're here live. And so here we're using Zoom, but we're also using Event Raptor. And I'll be honest when I say I'm not even really sure what Event Raptor is doing for us right now. I'm just here in the Zoom room. So I could use a little bit of better understanding of what's happening with Event Raptor. Maybe that's like the registration page and the follow-up emails, and maybe that's how like the lead magnets are distributed, but I'll ask Michael more about that. I love that it's live because it's happening in a day instead of like over the course of a month or two, right? With all these interviews. So that's the progression. I'm loving the experience of just showing up and having all the speakers and everything's organized. And so thank you to Event Raptor and Michael Whitehouse. Now, before I turn it over into interview mode, let me show you why I do summits. So I mentioned having the authority. So I am now and forevermore until the end of time, the host of the Grow Your Coaching and Wellness Practice Summit. Because I said so, because we did it, we're doing it. I'm the host, Michael's the MC, I'm the founder, I'm the creator of whatever. It's the authority. I get to claim the authority. So my other client I mentioned, he's the host of and the creator of the Hashimoto Summit. It just positions you as an expert in your industry. So if you're a high ticket sales expert, do the high ticket sales summit. If you're personal branding with Instagram, do the personal branding with Instagram summit, right? So why do it? Authority. 2, you get subscribers. So let's say you have 10 speakers and all 10 of these speakers emailed the registration page for the summit out to their list. Now you're getting 10 different audiences exposed to you and your message. And the most engaged and most interested members of those audiences will register for your summit. So now your audience grows. So you're getting subscribers. Number 3, you're getting clients and sales. So if you're making an offer, if you have something available for purchase, that's clients, that's sales. That's why we're in business, to help people and make money, right? And then number 4, and I shared this in a breakout session, and she said, I'm so glad you got that. Most summit hosts don't realize that. And I'll tell you, this is the number 1 reason why I do summits. It's the relationships with the speakers. So I told Michael, I said, Michael, I want you to find 10 great speakers. And my best case scenario is that after we do this summit, the speakers and I do business together. Maybe I promote their stuff to my audience, or they promote my stuff to their audience, or we do a collaboration or a joint venture, or I become their client or they become my client. So I asked Michael to find speakers that we could do business together with. So what I love about this, of the last summit I did, I had 70 speakers and I got 6 clients out of it. So that was a lot of work for 6 clients, but it worked. And that summit was all functional medicine practitioners. So we had 70 functional medicine practitioners speak on a summit. 6 of them became clients. So relationship with speakers. So my next step after this summit is to follow up with our speakers, thank them for coming, invite them on a call with me, and see what we can do together. Now that my speakers know a little bit more about me, I know a little bit more about them, maybe we can collaborate. So I imagine out of 10 speakers, we'll probably have 5 or 6 of them want to do some sort of follow-up collaboration. And that's why I do my summits. I don't need subscribers. It's not the most important metric in my business. Authority doesn't hurt, but I've written 5 books and I've hosted 6 summits and I've given a TED talk and I've spoken at the United Nations, and I don't need any more authority. But if you're just at the beginning of building your authority, maybe that's good for you. Clients and sales for sure. So for me, my clients and sales are going to come from people who booked a call from my last talk where I gave my calendar link. I'll probably send a follow-up email to all the subscribers, because a lot of people subscribed to this summit and didn't show up because they're busy, because they're working, because whatever. So those are the four reasons why. And that's my little training on how Majeed does summits. Now, I would like to interview Michael on what makes a great summit. Michael, before we go into my interview, any comments or questions about my little summit training here?
So what's funny is I don't think you've seen the presentation, which is, when you click the link and watch the video. But those 4 points are the 4 things I talk about in the presentation, I think in that order too. So I talk about the authority, that it's the authority of being an author or a podcaster or whatever without having to write a book or do 100 interviews or do any of those things. But it's funny to see those 4, like those are the exact same 4 things. Because I guess, that's the 4 deliverables that a summit has.
Okay, Michael, then allow me to interview you, and we'll keep it laser and brief and super valuable. Let me frame this as, what would be your advice for someone who's going to run their own summit versus someone who's going to hire you? Let's start with they can't hire you for whatever reason. They're going to run their own summit. What's your advice?
Let's see. So the first thing is know what you're trying to do. The lesson that many people have shared throughout the day is begin with the end in mind. So like some people will run a summit because their friend told them that summits are great and they should run a summit. And then so like, I'm running a summit. But if you don't have a purpose for it, then you won't build it to be what you want it to be. And it can be anything. I mean, I ran my first summit because it seemed super fun and I didn't like the events I was seeing and I wanted virtual events to be better. So I made one the way I liked it. But so if your goal is authority, you're going to run it somewhat differently than if your goal is subscribers versus if your goal is sales. And potentially, depending on what your goal is, you may discover that the summit isn't the right tool for the job. So it's a question of knowing what you're trying to do, what the goal is, and then running an event along those lines. For example, like if your goal is authority, then the format where the speakers all send in their own videos and you're going to send it out by email over the course of 21 days, which is a very effective format for building a list. But if you're not on those videos, it doesn't build your authority at all because no one knows who you are because you're not on the videos. Versus, if you're just trying to build your list and you're not worried about authority, well, maybe that would be the way to do it. But yeah, so know what you're trying to do and then build an event that serves that purpose. And then the other thing, I mean, I'm a huge fan of this format. Obviously, it's what I do. But I like it because it creates the human connection. As I say, you don't connect to the internet, you connect through the internet. The internet is just a bunch of computers and computers don't buy stuff. Well, I mean, unless it's an AI thing, but for the most part, computers don't buy stuff. People buy stuff. So you want to connect to people through the internet and create that engagement. And so, find ways to bring people together and create an experience, not just here's some knowledge, open your brain, here comes the knowledge hose. You want to actually make them part of it and create an experience for them.
And then someone who's working with you, Michael, how do they get the most out of the experience of working with you?
Again, some of it is being clear on which of the 4 things they're most interested in. And, obviously, someone's probably going to look at it and say, I like all 4 of them. But depending on where someone is in their business, if they're early stage and they're like, no one really knows me, then I need to know that authority is their focus. Versus if they're like, nah, I've written 5 books, I'm cool. What I really need is JV partners. Well, I need to know that's going to be the focus. And I can engineer things like that. Like, Majeed, did you notice that the breakout rooms, by amazing coincidence, put you with a lot of speakers?
I was wondering about that.
Amazing sheer random happenstance. You just happened to be talking to a lot of speakers. How'd that happen? Because I knew what your goal was.
Yes.
So I made sure that you got to have those conversations with those speakers. Also, this event had more breakouts than if you'd said, I'm focusing on sales and enrollments, in which case I would use those spots probably for more hot seats and more roundtables where people would reveal, here's the challenge I'm facing, where as the host you'd have the opportunity to maybe private message them and be like, hey, I heard you have that challenge, I'd love to get on a call and help you out. So I can pull different levers and make slight adjustments that you don't notice when the summit's running. It doesn't change the quality at all, but the more I know about what the client is looking to do with it, the more I can optimize it for their needs.
What would you do specifically to optimize for sales?
To optimize for sales, as I said, it'd be more about creating conversations in the open. So more hot seats, panel discussions, more things where it's like everyone put your challenge in the chat, and basically getting the people who are in the room to reveal what they're working on, what's a challenge for them, what they're trying to do, so that the host can be there and be monitoring the chat. Because as the MC, I'm doing everything else. The host doesn't have to run the event. So you can be there monitoring and saying, oh, that's someone I should talk to. Oh, that's someone I should talk to. Oh, that person might like copy my book.
I just realized something that I should have done
Mm-hmm.
to optimize for sales is I should have had clients on here talking about how great it is working with me and what results they're getting.
Mm.
And since it's my summit, and since I have 2 clients here right now, I'm just going to do that. So we've got Joe, who's been working with me for a couple months, and we've got Tracy, who's just signed up and hasn't even been to a call yet. So I'd love to ask Joe, what's your experience like working with me? And then I'll ask Tracy, why did you just sign up with me?
Yeah, Majeed, and thank you for the invitation. One of the things that I want to let everybody know is that I'm actually a speaker as well. And just because I'm a speaker and I've been speaking on stages for over 20 years does not mean that I cannot sharpen the axe or sharpen the sword. I'm a big believer in the context and concept of Kaizen, which is Japanese for never-ending continual improvement. I met Majeed. We had a great conversation on a call. I think I surprised Majeed when I said, okay, sign me up for your program. And he was like, what? And that was literally it. I'm a big believer in that context as well. As a sales training coach, I want you all to think of it from a perspective of don't sell. What can we do to create buying conversations so that people are compelled to buy? And that's exactly what Majeed does. I highly encourage you all to look at his program. I would highly encourage you, if you want to get on a stage and be able to get your business to whatever your next level is, which is precisely why I connected with Majeed. Majeed has helped me connect with other people. There's one of my mentors who's a big believer in this, and I believe in this as well. We must pay for proximity. Pay for proximity. People who know people, they're in certain circles. Say, for example, if any of you are thinking, yeah, I'd love to connect with Tony Robbins, or I'd love to connect with Richard Branson. Well, you're not going to be able to email them and get a response. That's pretty obvious. You need to be able to pay your way into those circles. I can tell you from an affordability standpoint and from a high value standpoint, and I'm not a joint venture partner or getting a commission here, Majeed will give you massive value. So I highly encourage, if anything, click the link, get yourself an opportunity to at least take the opportunity to speak with him. You're going to learn so much just on that call. It'll be worth just the call, let alone what you learned here. And so, yeah, I've been in Majeed's program now for a couple of months. It's been fantastic. It has already paid dividends. And in fact, Majeed, as this has been going on today, I've made 2 sales today, one of which is from one of your connections. So it definitely works, you guys. We have to keep connecting.
Amazing. Thank you, Joe. And what
Pleasure.
I love about you, what you bring, Joe, is you bring such a spirit of contribution that you're making my program better, because now one of the selling points of my program is you get access to Joe. And I was just sharing with Joe last week, one of the mindset shifts that I'm really embracing is that we're not making sales to get clients. We are attracting clients to build a community. And so I'd love for you to experience that by having a conversation with me and meeting more great people like Joe. Let's put Tracy on, and let's have Tracy share why she chose to work with Expert Speaker.
Hi, guys.
Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. I got an invite to join Majeed's event he had in Ottawa, and it was an invite from a functional medicine clinic that I had joined. And I came out to that event. Actually, before I came out to that event, I looked at some of Majeed's content because it was so rich And so it had an extra layer of consciousness, an extra layer of spirituality, an extra layer of heart, not just logic. I got on a call with him, and Majeed, I just remember everything you went through and talking about speaking. And because I'm leaning into doing something so different than I have been doing, I'm well aware of the beauty of dealing with top players in their field. And that comes from Tony Robbins, which is what the last speaker just spoke, Joe just spoke about. Tony Robbins taught me that anything you want to do as a strategist, go find the number one in it. So as far as coaching and consulting, I'm currently training in the pieces of that with Mind Valley. And then I also called Majeed right away and said, I now need you to. And so signed on with him right away because he's an expert speaker, and I'm going to be speaking and coaching and consulting. And I so look forward to serving. And that's the biggest thing. I know you all keep talking about sales, but the bottom line is no client is served until they're in your stratosphere. And so that is what it's about, because they're just going to be better with being with you and being served by you.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow on your first call with us at 2:00. All right. So we just added in the client testimonial element to encourage more people to schedule a call with me if you're interested in working with expert speaker. If you're interested in getting more speaking engagements, hosting your own summits, telling your story in a really powerful way that attracts your ideal clients, book your call with me at expertspeaker.com/apply. Michael, I think we're pretty good. Is there anything that you haven't shared that someone who's building a summit really should know?
So the one key thing, and a lot of people have commented on this, but explicitly pointed out if you haven't noticed it, the breaks between the speakers is what makes my events different from most other events. And it's why most event hosts, when you mention the idea of running a live virtual event, like their face flushed and their hands get sweaty, and because if you're running a live non-interactive virtual event and a speaker no shows, then you've got however many minutes of dead air, right? If you've got just 30-minute back-to-back speakers and your speaker no shows at 2:30, you've got 30 minutes to fill with no plan to do it. The audience wasn't planning on engaging, they were just planning on listening, and suddenly it's just you. And maybe, Majeed, I suspect you could probably handle this. I'm sure I could handle this about like, hey, Majeed, you got 30 minutes to dead air to fill. You ready? You'd be like, yeah, because you don't have to get ready if you stay ready.
That's right.
But it's problematic. Whereas my thought is if a speaker doesn't show up, then we got more time to do hot seats. We could do another breakout. We've got all this stuff. So we've already got these breakout segments that keep people engaged, keep the energy up, keep the attendance up. People aren't dropping off because they're getting tired and getting Zoom fatigue, and keeps bringing them back. Plus, if you have a speaker drop, no problem. It's easily adaptable. How'd you adapt to someone if you want to build authority? So yes, the way I'd focus it on building authority, I did some of it for this one, is making sure to bring the host on after each speaker to comment on it. Because what happens is, even if as a speaker or as a host, you don't have a whole lot of authority, the speaker comes on, they say something really clever. The host then comes on and says, ooh, I really liked when Majeed talked about giving the right speech in front of the right audience. And now as the audience, you're thinking, well, the speaker knew that really smart thing. And this is the host who brought in that speaker, which is kind of like their boss. So clearly they're the authority because they just got to comment on 10 or 15 of these really smart speakers, because that's the way our brain works, is in hierarchies. So I would just make a special point to make sure that speaker or the host is there to comment on as much as possible. And part of it depends on the strength of that host as well as a speaker. So, you know, with Majeed, I just kind of toss him the mic and I'm like, hey, Majeed, say things. And he's going to say things. He knows what to do. Whereas if I'm working with a host who's not as strong of a speaker, not as confident, then as the MC, my job is to keep, you know, set them up a question, or when the speaker's speaking, I might even be, you know, speaking to them on Messenger or on, you know, whatever communications we have to say, hey, the speaker, do you have some key points to mention? And, you know, set up the key points. And like, great, I'm going to ask you about those key points when the speaker is done, and you're going to comment on them. So now, obviously, I don't need to coach Majeed on how to speak with authority. But if I had a host who did need that authority building, then I can position that as well. So yeah, for any of those 4 things, I can adjust it to maximize as needed.
All right, you've done an amazing job here, Michael. And I'm ready to wrap up and call it a day. Anything
All
else?
right. I'm going to drop these links in the chat one more time. So if people missed any of the speakers and want to see them again, they can go to summits.fun/growvip, which is for the premium pass there. And if you want to get your own summit run, you can go to summits.fun. Actually, at the end of that video, there is a link to book a call, which is that one. So if you're like, yeah, I don't need the details, I get it, I just want to talk to you, you can go to summits.fun/call and skip the video. But and let's see, one more question. When live virtual event and virtual event complement live events and virtual events reach different audiences. So virtual events, I suspect that most of you probably could not have come to Connecticut for this, or Ottawa. Or I mean, you could have, but probably wouldn't have. Whereas, you know, a live event, actually, I've now been to a live event and a virtual event with Majeed. So the live event was great. It was an 8-hour drive to get there. It was 3 days. I got a hotel. I learned how to eat healthy. I've been eating way healthier since your event, by the way.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a secondary benefit. But at the same time, like, that's not something I can go to, I don't know, 4 or 5 live events a year versus virtual event. I'm running 2 next week, you know, one on Monday, one on Thursday. So they reach different audiences. And sometimes the virtual event can be the entree to the live event. So you run the virtual event and people say, hey, you're pretty cool. And then you say, oh, I'm running a live event here. And you're like, well, I just spent 6 hours with you. Yeah, now I'll buy a plane ticket. Now I'll get a hotel. Now it makes sense to do that, because a free live event can still cost $1,000. So whereas a free virtual event costs whatever time it costs to get on there, and, you know, 93 cents of electricity. So, yeah, so that's answering all the questions. Put the links there. But so this has been awesome. It's always fun to work with you, Majeed, and the recording of the bonus material here.